You're listening to the Miles Ahead podcast with Dr. Miles Graham Salisbury, where he shares tactics, techniques, and protocols to improve your physical, spiritual, and mental fitness in order to become self-led, grounded, and integrated.
We're back with Zac Miller. He's back from doing some drugs down in Mexico. That sounded bad. Doing some plant-based medicine. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to even begin because you're probably still trying to figure out where you are now and what's still back there and what's still catching up to you, because I can only imagine going through what you did and how hard that must be, from what I've heard of with other people on podcasts like Sean Ryan and other Spec Ops guys that have gone through Ibogaine treatment, by the way, folks, is what we're talking about, and how it's changed their lives. So welcome back. If you haven't listened to the first episode with Zac Miller, go back. I think it's maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago. It's right before, it was in May, like when you're about to head down. So welcome back and welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Yeah, it's been a super interesting couple months since we last talked. You know, we've talked offline a couple times, but I think I'm ready to share some of that experience. You know, that Ibogaine's a really big topic right now, with it gaining some traction in different states. Texas was kind of the spearhead of the Ibogaine coming to the USA, and they've done a lot of work with that. And they passed legislation for $50 million in funding to get FDA approval for Ibogaine treatment, mainly focused on the veteran and first responder community. But I think the benefits are going to translate to so many different humans dealing with so many different things. I believe Brett Favre, I don't know a whole lot about him or his story, but he has been talking about his experience with Ibogaine for
Really?
Parkinson's. Yeah. And
Wow.
so between the Parkinson's side of things, I think another one that I've heard of is treatment for MS, where, you know, the person went for the Ibogaine treatment needing assistance even walking into the clinic, and, you know, through a full flood dose and 1 or 2 booster doses, being able to walk out of the treatment facility.
That's amazing.
So I think this medicine is not new, but it's new to our society and culture. And I think, you know, having these conversations around it's going to help a lot of people. I was fortunate enough to be in a group of first responders. We were the first group for this this program. It's called Beyond Service. It's through Beyond Ibogaine, which is located in Mexico, Cancun. And Beyond Service, their goal is to make this available to first responders and veterans. And so far, they've ran 10 cohorts of people through their program. Their
So somewhat
programming.
new.
Yeah, so it actually started in January officially, and it was started by a group of veterans and first responders that had gone through the program, and we're like, we need to set something up to make this a more regular thing. So I think they're on cohort 10 or 11 right now. I actually have another buddy that's getting ready to go down that I met in Texas last year, became friends with. He introduced me to the program, and due to some logistical complications, I got to go before he did. But I was a part of the first responder cohort to go through. I went through with 4 other men, all with first responder backgrounds, which is pretty unique. Up until this point, it's mainly been focused on the veteran community. The Stanford study that was done was just for combat vets. One of my coaches was actually part of that Stanford study. So he had the brain scans done, and, you know, has been a big advocate, especially in Texas up to this point, for bringing it to the U.S. But yeah, on May 24th, I landed in Mexico, and I we'll back up a little bit. Leading up to this, we did 4 weeks of coaching as a group, with journal prompts and things like that leading up to this. So it wasn't get on a plane, land in Mexico, and take this plant medicine. This
Probably a
was
good move.
the program's very well curated, with curriculum to back it up, and they've done a really good job with that, and it really did make the experience easier. Something we'll get a little more into. For me, this experience was all about surrender, and that started for me not only when I signed up for the program, but then along the way, little pieces of that surrender continued to come up. And
What does it mean for you to surrender?
I think I fought it most of my life, trying to control every little thing. I can't remember if it was on our last episode or not, but a lot of the reason I was in public safety was I was controlling situations and couldn't control my own. So it was kind of that, I can control it here, but what I do in my personal life, I have, I don't have control over. It's it's a mess. Those types of things. So for me, and as we continue through talking about it, it'll continue to come up, the surrender piece, but surrendering to the unknown, really, and just being okay with not knowing the outcome or what the outcome's going to be.
So that's it.
And
Okay.
yeah, so leading up to this, little pieces of that were coming in, but they did a really good job at like helping us set expectations and realistic expectations of what this medicine can do. So many people experience where they go down with a opiate addiction and, never have the desire to use again after that. So like, that's a really big expectation to hold.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
having that assistance and guidance of like setting expectations and intentions, setting intentions was one of the biggest things that we worked on. And, those can vary. And then also knowing that once you take the medicine, you do not have control over how it goes.
Forced
This
to surrender.
medicine's very intelligent and you can work with it. But you're not going to control what you see, what you experience with it. Other than, trying to work with it and be open to it. But that's where the surrender piece comes in. Being able to be in a place where you can start working through it and working with the medicine. So for me, I landed in Mexico. The only hiccup I had in my travel was finding the vehicle that was supposed to pick me up. And that's because if any of you have been to Cancun, it's a very hectic airport. Security was a breeze compared to the U.S., which was
Surprise.
a stressor leading up to that. Was like, how am I going to deal with security up to that point? Anytime I flew, I had anxiety medication or something to help me with those things navigating the airport. And I had been detoxed from all of that leading up to that. So landed in Mexico, had a little bit of trouble navigating who was picking me up and where I was supposed to be, but we navigated through it. I ended up getting to Beyond, and we started the work right away. The benefit, one of the biggest benefits of doing the 4 groups of coaching beforehand was I already knew the guys I was going to be with. And we had already started forming relationships. And so to get there and hug them and know some of their background and know why they were there, and same for, them meeting me, made it really easy to just drop right in. Ibogaine treatment should be done under medical supervision. There's a lot of videos out right now where Brian Hubbard, one of the main advocates for this work, is talking about how this isn't a recreational drug. This is not something people are gonna, be taking to party or any bit of recreation. This is a very internal, introspective drug. And Ibogaine comes from a South African plant or an African plant the Gabon region, and so it's been used for thousands of years in their traditions, mainly around initiation, but also for treatment of certain things like mental health related things. Um, so the medical side started right away. EKGs when we first got there, blood work, urine tests, those types of things, just overall assessment. There's a full medical staff. And that was also a surrender piece. I'm so accustomed to the healthcare in the United States and having been involved in it in EMS and, those types of things. The doctor gave me a hug right away. The nurses all gave me hugs. That piece alone, just shows the difference in healthcare. I don't think I've ever gotten a hug from a nurse I didn't know, especially when I was seeking some sort of treatment. And a very unique thing that I hadn't experienced going to a different country, that's my second international trip. My first international trip was the Bahamas for a breathwork retreat. And they hug heart to heart there. So it's a little bit different of a hug than I'm used to. And I really enjoyed that. And that's something I've carried through, this process is like when I give somebody a hug now, my head doesn't go over their right shoulder. It goes over their left so that my heart's a little bit closer to theirs. So
that's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a really interesting thing that I didn't expect for sure. So the medical side started right away and continued out through the entire experience. That the time that we were there, I had multiple EKGs, multiple blood work, multiple urine tests, those types of things, and they just track everything.
That's really, really smart because I'd imagine. You had to wean yourself off all the psych meds that you're already coming off them anyways, but I bet you some people would show maybe it's a little bit more in their system. They want to make sure that's completely out of your liver's detox at all. Otherwise, some bad juju could interact with
absolutely.
the Ibogaine.
And the Ibogaine does have a element where I believe, and I could be corrected on this, but it prolongs the QT interval in the heart. So that's the main thing they're looking for is anything that's going to affect the QT interval.
Explain that to people that don't know what that is.
I really don't remember from my time in EMS, but essentially it can lead to other issues. So that's the thing they're looking for the most is, that you don't have any issues with QT side of things in the heart.
Like arrhythmia and other electrical signaling. Yeah. That makes sense. And it does probably increase heart rate, I imagine, like a lot of plant-based medicine does. I know psilocybin can do that.
Yeah, I believe so. So leading up to the treatment, they did a lot of other holistic modalities at their retreat center. It is a full treatment center, but they bring in the holistic side. Again, not very common in the U.S. to, be going down for medical treatment, but be getting a full body massage and helping do relaxation. We did cold plunge a handful of times while we were down there. And we did it as a group, to support each other and to, one of your recent guests, Dewey, when we go through a hard time together, we come out okay. We build that trust and relationship. So we did multiple things like that. They offer sound baths, and that was, something I'd experienced before, but not in the ways that they did it down there. We did a floating sound bath where essentially they put air mattresses in their pool and had the sound bath going on while we were floating on the water, looking up at the stars. It was a really unique experience.
That sounds great in and of itself. I mean, I'd do a retreat that just did that.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Sounds fantastic.
And to see how they weaved these other modalities into the medical side too, everything was about like relaxing the nervous system the entire time, the food, the environment, every single interaction was about how do we get your nervous system as prepared as we can to take this insane psychedelic.
That makes complete sense because if you just throw someone in the deep end with that one, because that's a pretty heavy hitter, you're going to maybe have a worse off experience or more intense experience that maybe scares the shit out of you or whatever. So it's pretty clever that they did that.
So, like I said, I was with 5 or 4 other first responders going through this program as well, and 3 of them got to go. So we got there on a Saturday. 3 of them went in on Sunday evening for their flood dose. So the flood dose is calculated. They give you the most amount of medicine that your body can handle, and they determine that through the blood work and EKGs. And so 3 of them, we had a energetic cleansing ceremony before they went into their treatment, and they went in for treatment. I went back to the house and slept all night, and then I was going in the next morning. So, it was that added a bit of anxiety, not going in, right away, having to wait. And that was a surrender piece as well. Having to surrender, it's not my time. My time's coming and I get that time, but I have to wait. And that had some lessons in it. A big
You were
thing
in really good hands.
Yeah.
It's amazing they have it down to a science, with all the pre-work they do, and then you'll probably talk about the post-work, but just even down to like measuring blood levels and your heart and everything like that to make sure that the dose is correct. Because I imagine like you go down and do ayahuasca, like everyone's, I don't know if they do that. They're just like, here, drink this and go puke and shit yourself and off you go. Like that's smart that they do that because you want to make sure, because the dose, the medicine's in the dose, right? And the poison is the medicine can be the poison. So it's really nice to hear that it's getting scientific. I like that there's the old ritual that goes with it. There's, the indigenous cultural aspect overlay for some of this stuff, but to bring in the Western approach with the medical part, I think is really intelligent. So I'm glad to hear that they're doing that.
The doctor that, was overseeing the treatment when I was in the treatment room, he had been trained in the U.S. He was actually an ER doc, so his background, he had experienced Ibogaine a couple months before we had gotten there. I think, right around 3 months before we had gotten there. So this doctor had actually experienced the medicine. And how many doctors in the U.S. are not experiencing the medicine that they're giving and prescribing to people?
Right.
So just a totally different outlook on the medical side, and really eye-opening and, encouraging on what the possibilities with medicine are. It's not just science. It's not, it can be very relational. So that was a really unique aspect of it too. Multiple of the nurses, most of their staff have experienced the Ibogaine or will get to experience the Ibogaine if they choose along the way. And I think that's awesome.
I think that's fantastic. Yeah. So they know what people are in for and they can help sort of explain it.
It's one thing to be an eyewitness to someone's experience, but to actually have that experience for yourself totally changes how you can approach things. Kind of like coaching and therapy. It'd be terrible to go to a therapist that's not in therapy as well.
Yeah, that's how you find out if you're seeing a good therapist. Like, first question is asked, like, do you have a supervisor do your own therapy? If they say no, fucking run. Dude.
Yeah.
You're going to get a therapist that has, that's a whole other podcast. That's dangerous. It's like, or I had people like, even in one of my PhD programs had never done their own therapy, becoming psychologists. Like, hey, wait, what? It's like, I want to be a pilot. Cool. Here's the manual and we're studying about it. Like, so how many times have you flown? Oh, I've never flown. Well, you want to be a pilot? Yeah, I'm going to fly. Have you been in the air? No. How do you, wait, what? You don't know what it's like to fly? Like that makes no sense.
Flown on a plane. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes no sense. So I'm glad that these guys were flying, and I'm sure everyone's experience is a little bit different. And back to managing expectations, like all I hear, and when we talked about this surprised me, and I'm glad that you brought it up, is everyone thinks that when you do Ibogaine, like you have a full life review and you come back with no addiction and it's like this fucking silver bullet. Like,
Yeah.
it's probably not like that for everybody.
Yeah, definitely not. And, that was really helpful to know going into it. I did not go down there with the expectation it was a silver bullet. And that was brought up to me of like, this is not a silver bullet. It can be, but don't bank on that. So going into that, really did help with the surrender piece too, because once you take this medicine, you're not in control of what you experience. You can help guide it along the way if you're open to that, but for the most part, you're not in control of the experience. So,
is this an eye mask, eyes closed thing? I've heard some people say if you open your eyes, it's like harder or something like that. Or
yeah, so their room's set up to be very accommodating. It's a dark room. It's not fluorescent lights like a hospital. I can't imagine what that experience would be like, having, even the sounds of the fluorescent lights that I can hear. But yeah, I had a very good eye mask on the entire time and very good headphones. And they had a curated playlist both during the full flood dose, the recovery time, and then in the booster dose. Excuse me. Booster dose that we did. And we can get into that a little bit as well. But I went in at, I think, 8 o'clock on, it would have been Monday morning, and was with two other people. One guy from my group, and then one of the civilians that had gone down for the treatment as well. They had 3 beds available, so that's, the group that we went in with. And, they, even as they serve you the medicine, it's in a more holistic route. They bring it to you on a tray with a candle, and it's very intentional, and you can say a prayer beforehand, before ingesting it and that type of thing. So the medicine for me was in a capsule form, and it was dosed, like I said, based off of my blood work, my body weight, and EKG. So they give you the max amount that they can. I think for me, it was right around 12 or 16 little capsules. Some of the guys, had 20 plus capsules because of, based off their weight and, blood work and all that. So, it was a lot to ingest, especially on a empty stomach. We had fasted up to that point. But within 15 minutes, I have very high metabolism, and within 15 minutes, I started feeling the medicine go to work with auditory changes, some light visual changes, and then just the warmth throughout my body. So I knew it was working right away. Unfortunately, some people with lower metabolic rates, it can take up to an hour, and, you're just laying there knowing that this is going to come on at some point and can lead to some anxiety. So I did not experience that. I got to experience it right away, and just really committed to whatever was going to come up for me. I had a coach beforehand kind of describe the Ibogaine experience as our brains being like a ski mogul field with, the ski moguls get cut really deep, and sometimes it's really hard to get through those. And the Ibogaine's like a fresh snowfall, and it just kind of fills in the gaps and makes going down the hill a lot easier. So I would say that's a really good analogy that I've actually experienced too. Yeah. Any questions about that so far?
What was you explained the bodily sensations. What was the psychological effect? Like, what was going through your mind when it hit, and onward from there?
A lot of what I was thinking about during that time was like just the intentions that I had set leading up to that point. Like, one of them was, show me how good things can get. Like, I've lived up into this point of, I know things can be all right and they can be good at some points, but most of, the past decade has been pretty shitty, and I'm ready to live fully, and show me that, show me what I've been missing. I've been doing this deep work for the past 5+ years through therapies and breath work and meditation practices and treatment for addiction and PTSD, and have looked at all the dark sides, have uncovered some of the good sides of the dark times that I was in, and you know still felt like the addiction could come back at any time, and overpowering. And, I really wanted this medicine to not only help my brain, but to reveal to me, like, if I was missing an aspect that, you know, might have come up in a different way, but I hadn't fully integrated or worked with yet. So really just as that medicine was starting to start working, um, just thinking about and praying about my intentions and the reason I was doing it, and it is to get my brain back to the best condition possible before the traumas affected things, before any chemicals and substance had affected things. Um, and one of the biggest prayers was return me to my original perfect condition, and that was one of the things I kept repeating as this medicine was starting to take off inside me.
Factory reset.
Yeah. And, Ibogaine's really unique because it affects so many different areas of the brain. It affects the dopamine receptors. It affects the serotonin receptors, where a lot of different psychedelics will affect parts of the brain, but not the entire thing. And, there's a lot of good videos out right now. Like I mentioned, Brian Hubbard, he explains kind of the mechanism of action of Ibogaine to the best that he can. And, I'd just refer anybody to those types of videos to learn more on how it actually affects the body. They helped us learn enough about things, but it is hard to sometimes translate, and make sense to other people. So he does a really good job at that.
Were you saying there was like a 90-day window of sort of neuroplasticity that occurs after this, where it sort of interrupts the default mode network or whatever, like the grooves you're talking about? You got that nice layer of fresh snow where things that fired together, wired together, maybe are a little less bound. The Gordian knot's a little looser, and you can start to make new knots or new grooves. Have you found that to be true for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. The Ibogaine, once it's processed through the liver, turns into the metabolite noribogaine. And noribogaine stays in the system for up to 90 days. And different things can affect that. Like, they told us multiple times, like, anybody, I didn't have this issue, going into it, but like alcohol, alcohol is going to lower the window of time that noribogaine's in your system. So, they really encourage people, like, even if you're a drinker, like, stay away from it for these 90 days. But as compared to other psychedelics like MDMA, psilocybin, trying to think, any of the main psychedelics, ketamine, they all have a neuroplastic window, but they're anywhere from usually a couple days to maybe a couple weeks. As opposed to Ibogaine, where you're getting a 90-day window, which is absolutely incredible to make long-lasting changes, and form new habits and new routines and things like that. So
that's interesting. Do you feel like it was easier to do that, or do you have to set an intention to do it, or is it like you notice, like, oh, I have less resistance towards this thing I normally procrastinate, or blah blah blah?
Yeah, everything for me has been subtle. It hasn't been like even in my Ibogaine experience, like, I didn't have a huge aha moment. Like a lot of the stories out right now around Ibogaine, because it's gained so much traction, is these aha moments where people realized they couldn't keep living the way they were before they went in for Ibogaine. And I didn't have that experience. And, I've had to sit with that the past couple months of, like, even sharing on this podcast about, my experience, there wasn't that aha moment like I've heard so many other stories. But what I kind of figured out for me was everything was more subtle and more about integration. I've done all this work and still was struggling up till the Ibogaine treatment. But I really hadn't integrated everything in the ways that I should have, or could have. And so that's like, we're noticing that 90-day window. Like, for me, I'm less reactive, which is massive. It's one of those subtle things, though. You don't always notice that you're being less reactive until, like, I'm less reactive around my kids right now, and that's phenomenal. Before I went in, I was still very reactive. My daughters have a ball pit in their playroom, and my second youngest has been trying to trigger me and see if I'll react, and she'll dump the entire thing in the playroom. And it's like, all right, let's clean it up. It's not a blow up reaction of like, why did you do that? Well, she did it because she's 4 and she's trying to, she's
Test the boundary.
testing, and we're rebuilding trust from the past year of me being gone, and working with that type of thing. So definitely with the reactions. And I've noticed, like, on the ADHD side, which you and I have talked about quite a bit offline, but like beforehand, I had a good handle on my ADHD, especially without being on any medication. But since being back, I've noticed, like, I'll prioritize tasks. Not only make a task list, but then I can prioritize what needs done first. And I actually start with that and complete it. And it's not jumping around as much as I did. So I'm definitely noticing the cognitive benefits of this medicine too, in being able to work with things and complete tasks, not only in a timely manner, but in an order that makes sense. Not just doing what feels like the easiest task to get it done. Back to starting with the harder thing and making sure that one gets done, and then moving on to the next thing. And, for the most part, everything on my task list has gotten completed lately. I'm not missing deadlines like I was before. Not forgetting simple things, so those benefits to me are more the subtle benefits, that, come along with this medicine. And I'm still in the 90-day window. I'm towards the end of the 90-day window, but I'm still there. So, remembering to have a meditation practice and continue to use breath work, because that's just reinforcing the neural pathways right now, and that's going to last longer term than, if I just didn't do anything with this 90-day window.
Yeah, you sort of have to take advantage of it and make sure you're intentional about it. Can you go back and do it again? I mean, I was talking to Dewey, I think maybe it was at the Uncivilized retreat, and he was talking about psychedelics and, like, indigenous cultures maybe historically would do these once or twice in their life, and you got people like doing it once a quarter, an ayahuasca thing. Like, is that good? Like, I don't know, is that going to help? Is there a redo with this one, or they just say wait a couple years, or is like one and done? What's the protocol?
There are definitely people that are doing it on a schedule, that like do it. I've heard stories of people that go down once a year and do it.
Okay.
The way I understand it is I don't ever have to do it again. Like, I don't necessarily agree with the current culture around ayahuasca. I've yet to experience ayahuasca, but to me, it's really confusing that people are going down for 20 experiences.
It's a lot.
To me,
are you going to come back?
Yes. There's a lot to work with on the integration side, I think, is the key factor with any of these psychedelics and any of the work we do. It doesn't have to be medicine related at all. It really comes down to the integration. And the intention of using these medicines to get insights on what to integrate.
I think that's it. And I think it's our culture of like, let's take a pill for this or read a book for that or go to a seminar for whatever. And then you're not metabolizing what you're learning. You're just like, okay, that was fun. Let's do it again. And hoping that does the work for you. Really, It's just like opening a door so you can walk in and like go to the fucking gym where the weights are. Okay, we've identified where the gym is. We didn't know where it was. We bushwhacked our way through this. There's the door. Now we got to walk in and lift the weights. And everyone's like, let's bushwhack some more and find another gym.
Yeah,
and
I
not
don't want
lift
to
the
lift the
weights.
weights.
Yeah. So you're right. I think the post integration is very important.
I think, if people can reframe, like, why are you using this medicine? Is it to try and escape something or to bypass something, or
Correct.
I'm using this medicine to help me see what I need to integrate to move forward with the life that I want to have. I think, so I have no answer on if I'll ever do Ibogaine again. At this point, I don't think I'll ever have to again. But, that's just what I know right now. And, it's also helped me live more in the present moment with not looking too far ahead and definitely not looking back in the negative ways that I was before. So I think for the most part, the majority of people could experience this one time and not have to go through this experience again. But I think it all comes down to the integration, the willingness to integrate from the experience, and what you were able to work through with the medicine in the time that you had.
If you're a civilian or average Joe and you maybe don't have a big T trauma, maybe you have some little T traumas, or just the normal neurotic everyday folk person, could they get something from doing this, or is it maybe don't worry about it?
Yeah, I think most people would benefit from having this experience. I think, if you look at it from the initiation side of things only, most people in our society are not initiated in a formal way. They're initiated through life circumstances and situations, but I think there's definitely a lot that the indigenous cultures have around initiation and what that does for somebody. So I think using it in that sense, I think everybody could definitely benefit from it, but they have to be open and willing to go through this really hard experience. Going back to the experience a little bit, it's a 12 to 24 hour psychedelic experience, where, psilocybin mushrooms, you might get 12 hours max.
Yeah.
Depending on your dosage. Micro doses are definitely not going to give you that,
Nope.
the higher doses you might get up into that 12-hour range, but for the most part, you're looking at a max of 8 to 12 hours for these other types of psychedelics. So there is a huge surrender piece, and I'm going to be in this hospital bed hooked up to these monitors for at least 12 hours.
And not sleeping.
And not really sleeping. I mean, I was laying there, but I wouldn't say I was resting or, I was in a psychedelic experience and, navigating through that, the entire time. So it was very active, even though I was laying in a bed.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah, if I think about using it as like indigenous cultures would have, they probably did use it for an initiation and for healing. Like finding like oh, you rite of passage, like let's bushwhack and find your gym, back to that analogy, because you got to find out who you are and where you need to go. What's my purpose? Maybe it helps with that. And then maybe post war trauma or whatever, they maybe run people through that to help them overcome what they saw or whatever. I can see it being used for those two things. I hadn't thought about it that way. So I guess everybody could benefit from this if they wanted to do it, if they can find a way to do it. I know it's hard because usually you qualify now if you've seen shit, gone through shit through service. It's hard for the average person to probably get a hold of this stuff, maybe illegally or whatever. Maybe there are ways I just don't know about, but I hope that people.
The good thing about Beyond, like I said, we went through a specific program designed for veterans and first responders through Beyond Service. But Beyond Ibogaine, as far as I know, anybody can go there. There were,
Oh, really?
Yeah. We got to interact with the quote unquote civilian side that was down there. And, there are people from all walks of life, and they were each experiencing it for different reasons. Some of them were there for addiction. Some were there for opiate addiction. Some were there because of just mental health and trauma related things that had happened throughout their life. So it was really interesting, being in such a unique group of first responders, and then also being interacting with the rest of the clients down there that were each there for their own reasons. And
Okay.
even in our first responder group, we were each there for different experiences. Some of it was childhood related, some of it was service related, but the thing we had in common was that we were first responders and dealing with something.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you guys probably bonded pretty quickly, I would imagine. I mean, going to like the retreats that we've been on, like it destroys the myth that men can't bond quickly. I imagine this was like bonding on steroids in a way.
Yeah, it really was.
Intensely.
I can't say enough about like how important the pre-coaching sessions were. Not only as a group, but with a one-on-one coach, and hearing that person's experience and perspective on things. But really to be able to show up, after 4 weeks of knowing somebody online, show up in a different country and be able to dive into the work that we did, like, to me, that's a testament to the pre-coaching and all of those group sessions.
That's genius. That's a good segue for me to ask you, how has the work informed your work with your clients and your work with coaching? Are you going to bring some of that in, or how does that those skills transfer?
Yeah, I think, one of the things is like building consistently and constantly building from our experiences. So if I keep having these experiences that I have the past year at least, how much of that's affected how I coach and how I approach just regular people. I've been doing some DoorDash on the side to make some extra cash lately, and even my interactions with other humans, less judgy, and not just actually being present with whoever I'm with. Not it doesn't really matter who I'm with, but like actually being present with them. And I think bringing different aspects of that into my coaching. I'm on a group message on WhatsApp with the guys I went through, and how important that's been. Sharing not only the wins and recognizing things post Ibogaine, but when I'm having a hard day, I can share it with those guys and like, hey, this, even though we experience this, we're still going to have hard days. It doesn't mean, the days are going to be all sunshine and rainbows. I'm, personally, like we can get into a little bit, personally, since coming back from my Ibogaine treatment, I'm also going through a divorce and, navigating what being a dad looks like now. And
interesting timing for that one, right?
Housing and things like that, and I think, the Ibogaine has helped me navigate in a different way than I would have used to, for sure. So I don't know that I have much of a choice but to integrate some of the things that I've learned from this entire experience into my work.
Surrender again.
Absolutely.
So it's hitting home life and work life, which is unfun, but helpful, I would imagine.
Yeah. Like we were talking about, prior to hitting record, like my first divorce, for your audience, this is divorce number 2 for me. And, I've had to sit and work with a lot around that. And I'm handling and navigating this one completely different than I did my first divorce. And that's
What's the difference?
where, the biggest difference is I was not one bit sober throughout my first divorce. And with this one, we've been separated almost a year, and we started the divorce process after I got back from my Ibogaine treatment, officially with the courts and lawyers and things like that. And navigating this one completely sober and having to feel every single thing and not numb it out. I've talked to some of our friends about like, it's really difficult to navigate these types of things without any substance or numbing out activities. To stay in alignment through this one has been completely different, or as close to alignment as possible.
What is that like to sit with it, write it through? Does it? I think a lot of guys, when we do get caught in the trap, and probably a lot of women too, of the numb out, check out when shit gets hard. I think we're always looking for, okay, if I'm not doing that, I'm going to sit through the feeling. I'm waiting for the good feeling to come. I'm waiting for I'm going to get through it and be okay on the other side, back to Dewey's point.
Yeah.
Do you find that happening? How does that panned out for you? Is that still in process?
I'd say it's still in process for sure. But there has been days where it was like, man, it'd be really nice to use some cannabis tonight, to help me sleep. And, then to wake up the next morning and be like, oh, I did get through the night because I used breath work instead. And I think it's navigating through it this way has definitely led to less shame and guilt feeling than I did through my first divorce. There was tons of shame and guilt around that. And instead of dealing with any of that, I just drank, or would find some other woman to talk to or be with, and those types of things. So I think, they're just being aware now and navigating it completely differently. It's really uncomfortable. And I think that's where, the surrender piece comes back in. It's really, really uncomfortable to sit with all those feelings. I'm feeling upset today because this didn't work out. And that's a valid feeling. And, I'm able to sit with that and feel it. And if I need to take a break and cry for an hour and then take a nap, those types of things, like that's how I'm handling this time, as opposed to last time where I would have really essentially drank to ignore those feelings and numb out those feelings.
Yeah. Then they don't get metabolized. I think that's the problem with modern living. There's so many ways to distract and not metabolize, but you just nailed a natural process. Just sit with the feeling, it's coming up. It moved you to cry, which is moving stuff up and out of you. And then you took a nap and rested and recharged. Hey, there's a natural way to deal with your emotional world rather than crush a 6-pack or whatever. Then that stuff just keeps getting pushed down like a spring. And when that spring gets a chance to come back up, it's going to come up in weird freaking ways.
Yeah. I think going back to the Ibogaine, like one of the insights I had from the medicine was there are no shortcuts. And looking back on my life and had the chance to review some of those times when like, oh, I'll shortcut here and get ahead. And it only put me back further. There are no shortcuts. And if we surrender right now, it'll probably be a shorter amount of time that we have to be uncomfortable.
Isn't that the catch-22 or the whatever you want to call it? Yeah, it seems counterintuitive.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, the Ibogaine, like, I wish I had an aha moment to share, but for me, it was all the subtle things. And knowing going into it that no matter what, my brain was going to get the healing that it needed and deserved.
Yeah.
And even if that was the only thing I got out of it, if I didn't have any psychedelic visuals or life reviews and things like that, at least I was doing everything I could to get my brain better, and I'm definitely feeling the benefits of that and continue to each day.
I mean, that right there is worth it for sure.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're getting little aha moments as well. So that's worth it.
Through therapy, I was kind of able to determine that, like, and this was post Ibogaine, like after a couple weeks and in therapy, it was like, I have had the aha moments along the way. That's what breathwork was for me. The first breathwork breathwork session I did at the men's initiation was an aha moment. That was, along the way. So it's not like I haven't had any of these aha moments. I've just had them, as I've done the work. And this was a way to really highlight the things that I need to integrate even more on a deeper level. And, the biggest piece being that surrender. Like, I need to surrender and go with the flow more and quit trying to take shortcuts,
Which we're taught to do in modern living. What's the hack?
Yeah. What can I hack and get ahead? And, at the end of the day, at least in my experience, those have just added more work along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Absolutely. So when you're coaching, who are you working with these days? Like who's your ideal client, or are you seeing everybody? What's your jam?
Yeah, I'm definitely open to have chats with everybody and see if we're a good fit. I'm not saying I'm a perfect fit for every man or human that comes to me, but I do have tools and resources that I can help a lot of people. Right now, a big thing that I'm experiencing is people with ADHD type of struggles coming in. And I think I have a lot of tools and resources between the books I've read, the things I've learned about, like, the genetic side of these things and how our environment, affects them. Um, and, having tools like breath work and meditation to add into those sessions. I'd say that's a big thing. Obviously, veterans and first responders dealing with PTS, substance use, that I can help guide to what's best for them. The methods I've used aren't for everyone, and they might not be appealing to everyone. But I can also share with them from my experience, what I've experienced and why choosing to do some of the hardest things, like a 42-day in residential treatment, that was very uncomfortable and very hard to do. And, but the benefits of that for me were worth taking the 42 days to do that. And what I learned not only about, substance, but PTS and, Ibogaine. It's I described it as the most scary and hard experience I think I've ever had, but also the most loving and, like, kind experience that I've had, simultaneous. So, that's whenever you say scary, that's going to turn people off. So, that might not be an option for everyone right now, but I can explain what I've been through and, help guide people to whatever's best for them in whatever they're dealing with.
What was scary about it and what was enlightening, or is it hard to articulate in words?
I think the scary part goes back to not fully surrendering. I had the choice up until I took that medicine if I was going to surrender or not. And, internally was fighting, the entire time. And I think there's just a scary element that you're not going to be in control after you take this medicine. and that you just have to go along with the ride, whatever that brings up for you. Some people revisit some of their traumas. For me, I didn't really revisit any of the significant traumas and what I attribute that to is doing work up into taking Ibogaine.
Right.
I
You've
didn't
already
have to
dug
go
into.
through all those hard times again. It wasn't like, oh, I've already worked through these and now I have to go through them again. I've already worked through them.
Mhm.
The medicine knew
Mhm.
that I didn't need to experience that again. Like I did a
Mhm.
complete job at letting that process finish.
Right.
And there's anxiety and things that come with going to a different country to do a medication that you feel so strongly is going to help you, but it's illegal in the country that you live in, so you have to go to a different country. Like, there's scary aspects of that, just
Yeah.
being out of the normal, so,
Mhm.
you know,
Absolutely.
I think it all really just comes down to the surrender piece, for me at least, has been the biggest piece.
Mm. You've really done a good job with that, of turning your life completely around from all the shit you've gone through from your childhood through your time doing 3 different services, which is wild to me. you, you did that. If anyone wants to know the backstory of that, listen to the previous podcast. Turning it all around, and you're still doing the work, and we all got to still keep doing the work. But you're a good example of it, which
Thank you.
probably makes you a good coach because you know how to do that and you're doing it. So, where should people sign up if they want coaching from you?
Yeah, I have 2 different ways you can work with me. I have my personal brand, Evolving Guidance, just evolvingguidance.com. You can see my different offerings, mentoring, which is still coaching, and that's available to anyone. I do have a specific program set up for men called Shift. That's a 7-week commitment, and then I also offer breathwork. And happy to do one-on-one sessions, or happy to travel if someone has a retreat and they want to add breath work in, that's an option. Those types of things. Or they can work with me through Uncivilized and Man Uncivilized. You know, I do have the option, if somebody feels like that's a good fit, to do all the coaching through Uncivilized as well. So, um, either of those 2 places, they can reach out, and mention that they heard they could work with Zac, and one of us will get back to you, between either myself if you're reaching out through Evolving Guidance or through the Uncivilized channel. But
We'll link those so it'll make it easy for people.
awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I think you're a great resource, especially for veterans, first responders. It's like a 2-for-1. Yeah. Thanks for doing this for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Thank
a
you.
hard experience to go through. You're brave. I always think of like people doing psilocybin or ayahuasca, and like, yeah, it's hard, but like Ibogaine's no joke. Like you said, it's like almost a full day, and it seems like a lot of people that do it are the spec ops guys or guys that are like, there's some mental toughness involved in being able to go through that. So credit to you for doing it. Do you have any closing thoughts before we end?
No, I think, the biggest thing is thank you for being a place that I can share this.
Of
I
course.
think, the only way people are going to keep healing is when stories are told. There's a quote out
Yes.
there, Anne Voskamp, she's a Canadian author, but shame dies when stories are told in safe places. And this is a way
I
for
love
me
that.
to continue, um, killing off the shame that I carried around for so long around so many different things. So, um, I think people need other humans to share their experience, and then also be resources to help them through whatever their experience is. And, I think that's what both of us are doing here. Sharing stories and being a resource for people to get help along the way.
I agree. Yeah. We destroy shame by bringing it to the light. I don't know if that was Carl Jung. It's sort of like, it's like confession in a way, not like a sinful confession, but like just externalizing, like getting it out there. Because once it's out there, it's like, oh, that wasn't so bad. That person didn't shame me for what I just said. They actually said, oh, me too, or I can relate.
Yeah.
I think that's very, very important. So, and that's why we do this work and give people a place to do that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Good job, man. We'll probably do around 3 at some point. But until then, hats off to you. Keep doing the good work. I don't know how to end, because I don't want to end, because I just want to keep talking to you, because I always want to keep talking to you, but we'll end it for there.
Episode 3 happen soon.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm going to stop record, but you don't have to go away. But bye to the audience. We'll see you all next time. If this helps anybody, share it with someone. Give us 5 stars. If it's 1 star, don't give us 1 star. All that good stuff. All right, until next, y'all. We're out.